Hi, and welcome to episode 3 of the Last Palabra podcast, my weekly attempt at capturing and dumping the flow of information in and out of my head for you all to listen to. Thanks for tuning in, clicking play, whatever it is you do with a podcast these days. This week, I want to talk about polite burglaries, automated gadgets gone wrong, and the issue of food waste. I want to kick off, though, by talking about a bit of a funk that I've been in the last couple of weeks. I guess Eddie Cochran would call it the summertime blues, or maybe the post-summertime blues would probably be more accurate. August has been and gone, and it was a truly brilliant August for me. I spent it with my favourite people in the universe. My parents, my brother, my best friends, and of course my now wife, as everyone was here for our wedding, and it was such a special occasion. But that's kind of it now. It's over. Summer's done for another year. For the first 18 to 22 years of our lives, September kind of marks like an end to summer fun, summer freedom, and a return to the routine and the oppression of school. Whilst many of us no longer follow the school calendar, I think that kind of the new beginning that September marks is still deeply ingrained in us, like hardwired into our brains, as it were. And in addition to this sort of internal clock that puts us on flight or fight mode, ready for the return to the school system that we've not been part of. I've not been part of it for some 12 years. The days start getting shorter and colder and rainier, and like autumn is clearly on its way. And I think this is even, maybe more noticeable living in Barcelona, because during July and August, the weather gets really hot. Tourism surges in the city, but a large part of the amount of the country closes down. Businesses switch to this kind of intensive, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. kind of timetable, which I was doing for work. And the rhythm of life in general just kind of adapts to the heat of the city. On a practical level, it's kind of good because the metros are less packed when commuting, and it's far easier to find parking in the city. So as I've returned now to regular working hours, Patri's gone back to school because she's still on the academic September to July timetable. Just she's a teacher. I guess she'll never kind of escape that. But I had this kind of heavy, lethargic, sad feeling come over me. I just felt like I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to do anything. I had this kind of this malaise, I guess we'd say. I didn't feel ill, but I didn't really feel well. And Patrick would be like, "Are you okay? What's wrong?" And it feels ridiculous to say that I'm not okay because I was fine. But at the same time, nothing felt okay. And, when she kind of pushed further, it's just I don't know why. I don't feel all right. I just want to be left alone in my kind of post-summer stupor. I hope I won't make it sounding too serious, because it really wasn't. I'm fine. People wrestle with far more drastic bouts of anxiety, stress, or depression. Whereas I guess for me, it was just I want to binge on shit food and be left alone to do nothing in particular. The focus of this podcast and continuously working on the podcast, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, it's really helped me focus my mind on something. I got kind of fed up with work as well, with some long hours. Fortunately as well, the good people of social media have come up with labels for such issues. You'll find, and do a Google search, it's enlightening, the Sunday scaries, FOMO, or fear of missing out, and even errand paralysis are now things. Errand paralysis, I can't even say it. Errand paralysis is this kind of feeling you get when it's I need to go do something, I need to go do this. It's easy to do, registering to vote, or I don't know, go book an appointment to the dentist, I don't know. And you just, you can't be bothered. Errand paralysis, apparently it's called. I think it's a millennial issue. Blame it on the millennials. In addition to the Sunday scaries, FOMO, and errand paralysis, there's also what's been labelled the August anxieties. Now, like I mentioned, errand paralysis. These things kind of seem ridiculous. Ways of just maybe garnering attention on the internet, just complaining, talking about things. But one of the beautiful things that I do love about living in this hyper-connected 21st century world is that we can bring people together and share these experiences. What I've realized is that if you're going through something, be it good, bad, or indifferent, the odds are that in this world of over 7.5 billion people, there's going to be at least one other person feeling the same way. And thanks to the internet, we've got a better chance of finding that person and sharing the experience. Also, thanks to the internet, we have this language to talk about such things as FOMO or August anxieties to people to share this experience in like a coherent manner. Isn't it a marvelous time to be alive? So as I discovered, the August anxieties or the September blues are actually a very real thing. Describing this kind of, I don't want to say sadness. It's not a sadness, but this kind of low that maybe you get as summer's ending and like non-summer life is coming back. People feel more resilient and able to cope when the sun is shining, said Nikki Lidbitter, the chief executive of Anxiety UK, speaking with the BBC. I managed to find some articles about this. Even if we left school a long time ago, September feels like a time to be more serious and that can instill a sense of anxiety, she says. Some people feel that August is like a long Sunday. I've read this quite a few times. With the anxiety of like waking up tomorrow, the Monday of September. I think maybe I particularly felt this as I headed into kind of like 2 lots of 3 back-to-back weekends of work. I don't know. I just had this kind of like, that probably describes the feeling best, actually. It wasn't like I'm ill or bad or anything. It was just, It's not all bad news, though, as I've discovered researching on the internet. We can use this kind of like new school year Monday vibe to set ourselves up for a new start, set some objectives, organize yourself, do something new, maybe start a podcast. But getting organized is kind of like a fast track of getting back into the routine. And I'm not going to lie, there was part of me that was kind of like pining for a bit of routine as well, maybe. Like I needed to get back to this kind of knowing where my life was after this period of excitement of getting married and seeing everyone. Dr. Sherilyn Thompson, a counselling psychologist, again in this BBC article, said, after a period of relaxation, there's the stress of a new academic year or work or just getting busy, but also healthy routines and habits. And I think that's kind of key, is getting back to some kind of routine, laying down these healthy habits. Clinical psychologist Dr. Camilla Rosen from the Mental Health Foundation says to use this period to plan meals, catch up with people now that they're back in their routine as well. When the days are shorter, it's important to make a clear routine about when we're going to get fit, in exercise, get to the gym, and see our friends, she says. Make sure we get everything in. And I think a bit of routine helps that. I'm not sure about, I don't know. Sometimes the routine itself can like seem daunting. Like, I've got to go back to the routine, you know. I'm certainly trying to focus on getting back to the gym regularly. I'm definitely throwing myself in 100% to this podcast. Like, it's occupying my mind week on week, which is great. And just, I'm also, one of the other things I want to do is try and spend less time mindlessly scrolling through social media on my phone. And I say this often, far too often, and I very rarely chase up on it. I also criticize Patrick for it far too often. And I want to try and stay away from my phone more and connect with people and doing stuff. One of the things I've started doing on my commute to work is when I'm on the metro or on the tram is I put my phone in my bag so that it's kind of not buzzing in my pocket or even in my hands, and I make sure I read my books. We've been out a couple of times lately as well for meals, and I've left my phone at home, which is anxiety inducing in itself. Like, it's horrifying. I take a camera with me because I like to take pictures, as many of you are probably aware. But yeah, leave my phone at home. And once you get over the anxiety of it, it's kind of liberating. Like, give it a try. I recommend it. Also, apparently trying something new helps. So taking up a new hobby or sport or learning a new skill. I really want to learn to draw. Or maybe I'll double down on photography. I don't know. Like, if you've seen my personal Instagram account, I've gotten kind of into street photography lately. Like, just hanging out, taking pictures of people and things around, playing around. I like playing around with kind of capturing the moving. Like, so I'll drop the shutter speed right down so you get that kind of blur. Because I kind of get this feeling like living in Barcelona, everyone's in a rush, and I want to just kind of capture that bit. Just generally going for walks around Barcelona, taking maybe a longer way home or taking my time on the way home from work and trying to get just a few shots. There's plenty of, stuff happening in Barcelona to take photos of. So on that note, actually, I picked myself up an old 1960s old, like a really, well, not really old, but old enough, analog film camera. Like, it takes rolls of 35mm film. This is something I've toyed with it in the past, and Patrick's sister recently got into analog photography, and it was just like, you know what, this is cool to actually hold the photos in your hand and to not know what's coming as well. Like, I don't know, there was something cool about it, and she inspired me to go for it. So I found this secondhand camera on Wallapop, which is if you don't know, it's like an app for buying and selling secondhand stuff. It's pretty popular here in Spain. I got this camera pretty cheap, and it looks pretty cool, like this real vintage retro look to it, like this black and silver kind of. It's cool. I'll maybe share a picture of it. I bought some film from the same guy actually that I bought the camera off, because it turns out that he's kind of part of like a graphic design collective, I'd call it, or like a photography like collective. I don't know. He's involved in this project thing. And they've got like a lab for developing and scanning photos too. So once I've shot it all, I'll probably go back and see him and get him to develop my film. Of course, at around €4 per roll of film, €4 more to get it developed, a couple more euros to get it scanned. It starts to add up. It becomes an expensive hobby. Maybe you want to play around. I'll be looking at other secondhand cameras as we go as well. And especially because I'm so used to shooting like hundreds, if not thousands of photos on my digital camera. And just choosing my favorites. So I'd have like, I don't know, 100 photos. Maybe I'll get one that I really like. I do like limitations though, in general, because I feel it forces me to be more creative. Like, I don't know, podcasting, for example, like if I only got my voice to play with, it makes me be more creative. Putting the limits on taking pictures, it's an expensive, €4 a roll of film, 36 shots. I'm no good at maths. But it makes you conscious of like every time you press the shutter. So you have to be more like careful, but I think you also get more creative and you're pickier about what you point your camera at. Typically I don't know, I take hundreds of photos of my cats. I can't do that with a roll of film. It'd be just too expensive. Also, thanks to shooting like digital photos for the past 8 years or so, I've learned plenty about camera settings and setup. So hopefully it won't be a complete disaster. I know about shutter speed and f-stops and all that kind of stuff now. So I mean, I've got some idea. I certainly wouldn't consider myself a pro or anything. But anyway, I'm kind of excited. But of course, I won't know until I've shot the whole roll of 36 photos, taken it, and it's been developed. Because, that's the process, isn't it? You can't see the pictures right away. You have to wait. It turns out I'm not alone in this, or, well, obviously my sister-in-law as well, but we're not alone in this, because analog photography has been making a steady comeback for some years now, with reports of film consumption and processing almost doubling since 2016, and dark rooms and processing labs popping up all over the US and the UK. And in fact, probably most people younger than me have never actually used an analog camera. Like, I was thinking about this. Because we got a digital camera probably when I was around maybe 11. I'd have to ask my dad. I'm sure he'd know. It was if I remember right, it was like a real chunky, I can't remember the brand of it, but it was silver, and it was like a really, I imagine it was really low resolution, but it did the job. You got cool pictures that you could see right away. And so a lot of young people now in this period of instant gratification, they don't know the patience needed to make sure you get the right picture, because that's something you want to take your time taking one of these pictures, because you only get one chance at it. Then you have to wait to finish the roll of film. Then you have to take it to get developed, wait for it to be developed. Then you get the photos back, and hopefully, because you still don't know, they turn out the way you expected them to turn out some weeks ago, if you can even remember what you took the picture of. Like, the whole process is drawn out, but it's kind of cool. Like, there's a nostalgia to it. I like it. I have vague memories of like being on holiday, taking photos, coming back with, getting them processed, and then a heavy envelope of photos to look through arriving either through the post, or you had to go to Boots to pick them up. Remember that? And like, hopefully you didn't throw out too many, and some of you look at them and go, what on earth is that? Or I can't believe that looks like that, or, it never sees the light of day again. Because back then you had actual physical photos to hold in your hand. And you had to go out of your way to show people rather than just uploading them to Instagram. Like, you had to go, hey, look, do you want to see my holiday photos? And everyone would groan. And whereas now you can just skim past them on Facebook. I'm not saying it was particularly better or worse, or it's better or worse now. It's just different, and I like it. I'm going to retract what I just said. I like it, but I think it's better now, because having high quality photos right away is just awesome, and being able to share them with the world and everything. But there's certainly like a nostalgic thing that I really like about it. And also this kind of delayed gratification. Like, you just have to wait. Waiting's nice. You get this kind of something to look forward to, One of the things I do dislike about digital photography is that many photos just never see the light of day. Like, think about how many times you go somewhere and everyone, it happens all the time now. Go to a birthday, the birthday cake comes out, everyone's singing happy birthday, but they're all hidden behind their phones because they're taking a picture of you. So how many pictures, people taking on their phones that you just never see? Like, there's photos of our wedding that other people are in these photos with their phones taking pictures of us, and we're like, that'd be cool to see that from that angle. And like we'll never see it, I guess. I have to ask, where do these end up? I guess they either get deleted or they get lost in like a digital stack of photos underneath thousands and thousands of other photos. I'm as guilty as this for everyone else. I have probably in the last 6 months or so, maybe even more recently than that, we've got a new camera and I'm taking it everywhere and taking photos of everything. So every time I kind of transfer them to like my computer or my phone, I try and put them in an album. So I'm kind of organizing them, and not well, I'm going to be honest, not well at all. So I am as guilty as this as everyone else. Aside from like the odd photo that gets uploaded to Instagram, and that's naturally going to be the one that you look your best with the the true highlight of that event, and the rest will probably be never looked at again. That's it for them, and no one will ever see them. And I kind of think that's sad. I mean, that's the best option, they could get deleted and really no one will ever see them. And like, I enjoyed growing up and looking at photos of my mum and dad when they were younger. I want to have photos to look back on, and I think we risk not having that. My brother and his girlfriend got us for the wedding actually an instant camera. That was a really cool wedding gift. They spent the whole evening like shooting instant photos of everyone. I don't know how many hundred photos they gave us, but they took absolutely tons of pictures of everyone. And then the following day, they gave us like this album with all the photos in it, and the camera. They gave us the camera as well, which is great. I love it because you have this tangible physical photo to hold in your hand, and not all of them turned out great. In general, these it's a bit hit and miss. But there's no trying again, unless you want to use another of the Polaroid instant films because they're not cheap. And you just have to live with it. But at least you get a photo in your hand right there and then to show to everyone, and you can take it away with you. Admittedly, there's been a couple of occasions where it's been like, it'd be nice to give you a copy of this. Oh well, it's mine, I'm taking it with me. But it's nice to have a memory of that kind of moment. And so Patri and I have been trying to use it to take pictures to remind us of like specific moments in our life, or that we want to remember, or like gatherings of friends at a certain event or certain moments in their life. And so then we stick them in, and we've been sticking them in an album and like writing a date and a caption to give it some context. And it's just something that exists in the real world. You can lay your hands on it, you can hold it, you can flick back through it and share it and show it to people. And the showing to people is a shared experience as well, because it's like, hey, look at this cool picture that we took 2 years ago. And you've got a bit of context because we've written down what day it was and where we were. And like, they can go, oh yeah, that's nice, that's cool. You miss out on that, I think. Also, it's limited to those photos that you take and stick in it. Like, there's no more to it. It looks like, so that's my rant over about having actual photos to hold. But it looks like photography is not the only thing that's making an analog return. Like the digital, it's not a digital decline because digital's just continuing to grow, but there's this analog resurgence. I read in Rolling Stone last week, they reported that vinyl records are set to outsell CDs for the first time since 1986. They say that the sales of vinyl records have enjoyed constant growth in recent years. I was unaware. At the same time, apparently, CD sales are in a nosedive. Like, that doesn't surprise me. When was the last time you bought a CD? I think at best I bought a CD for someone as a gift, and even that I felt like was kind of a pointless exercise. Like, it feels like more of a recommendation. Like, hey, I think you'll like this music. I could have sent you a link on Spotify, but I gave you a CD. I don't know. Maybe I should start sticking a photo inside the CD so it becomes a rounded, tangible thing you can hold in your hands. I don't know. But apparently, yeah, CD sales are declining massively to the extent that CD sales were declining 3 times as fast as vinyl sales were growing. The Record Industry Association of America's mid-year report, which came out last Thursday, says that vinyl sales accounted for more than a third of the revenue coming from physical releases, with vinyl revenue growing by 12.8% in the second half of 2018 and 12.9% in the first 6 months of 2019, whilst the revenue from CDs has barely budged. Apparently, if this trend holds, records will soon be generating more money than compact discs. Tom Coulson, who is the co-chairman and CEO of Warner Records, told Rolling Stone, apparently, it's his words, "It's a sexy, cool product. It represents an investment in music that's an emotional one." Now, I'm not sure about sexy and cool. Vinyl's cool. Sexy. But for me, this he's hit on something here with it being an emotional investment in something. And I think that's the same with like my photos. Like it's far more expensive, let's say, in the long run. Like a nice digital camera and a memory card that's big enough is going to be far more expensive than a second-hand analog camera and a bunch of rolls of film. But in the long run, if you keep buying film and different film, and that can add up, you know. But it's an emotional investment. Like I feel like I have more of a connection to the pictures I'm taking, I guess. I don't know. The vinyl resurgence has been of a benefit, apparently, to some artists, especially classic rock groups. And maybe we're not surprised by this. But apparently, the Beatles sold over 300,000 records last year, vinyl records. Whilst Pink Floyd, David Bowie, Fleetwood Mac, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, and Queen all sold over 100,000. Now, when I was probably between the age of 19 and 24, I bought a lot of CDs. I never really got into vinyl. I had some when I was maybe 13 or 14, but not many. But my brother had many more. I bought a lot of CDs, and I mean a lot. Like, I love the way that I could hold it in my hand. You have to open the case. It's got a cool picture on it, cool cover art. You take the CD out, you put it in the CD drawer, and you play it. Like, the whole process, for me, had like a romantic, nostalgic feel to it. And just having CDs stacked up everywhere, and I love, like, if you had friends around hanging out of an evening, and you could kind of like track the evening by the reverse order of the stack of CDs. Like, it was cool. I try to cling to this by making playlists, like, as we go. So that, I don't know, like, if people are around at my house or I'm in charge of music, I'll try and make, rather than like just hitting play on stuff, I'll try and add it to a playlist so that it plays in like an order, and then you've kind of got this musical overview, like a snapshot of the occasion. I gave away a lot of my CDs before I came to Spain. I didn't really see the point in keeping them with like Spotify and stuff and moving them to Spain, and like I couldn't sell them for very much, so I just gave them away. I gave them away to family, friends, and then the rest I donated to charity to sell. There's probably some still in the Oxfam music shop in Nottingham that are mine that never sold because I had some weird CDs. I do kind of miss having CDs, but I'm perfectly happy with Spotify, just having it anywhere and all the time on my phone, TV, laptop, whatever. One thing I do miss, though, about CDs is that you could play albums in full. Like, you didn't have to, but it's far more complicated to program a CD player to play like a certain sequence of tracks than it is to just, now we just drop them into a playlist on Spotify. While I do love my playlist, I actually do try and still listen to albums in full from track 1 to track 15 or whatever, especially if it's like a new release from an artist that I like. Apparently those streaming platforms such as Spotify are completely dominating the music industry now. I wasn't aware. I kind of thought like MP3 purchases were still a thing. I don't know. Vinyl records accounted for just 4% of total revenues for the first half of 2019, whilst paid subscriptions to streaming services generated a huge 62% of music industry revenues. And it's just, I find it insane, like, how we're handing over large sums of money. Like, I'm trying to think, like, we pay, €15 between the two of us every month for the year. That's, a couple of €100 a year between us for Spotify. Like, that adds up, And, like, we're not owning anything. Like, we only have access to this music whilst we continue to pay for it. The day that I cancel my Spotify subscription, I've got no access to music because I gave away my CDs. The same is true of Netflix and other films and series streaming platforms that I spoke about a couple of weeks ago, Disney Plus, HBO, and all of that. We pay like month on month for the service, but the day we stop paying, we have nothing to show for it. I guess with Netflix, like, unless you're going to watch the same movie or series over and over again, like, I don't know, Friends. I can't tell you how many times I've watched bloody Friends. I guess it doesn't really matter. Like, there's probably millions, if not billions, of people over the world with shelves full of Blu-rays and DVDs that they've watched once and they'll probably never watch again. Like, there's very few films and movies that I watch repeatedly. Music, though, that is something that we repeatedly consume over and over and over, enjoying the same songs and albums time and time again. I wonder how many other things will be affected in such a way. Car sharing is a similar deal. Have you seen this? Heard of this? There are cars parked all over cities that people pay to use by like the minute or the hour. There's some special way to access or or start the car, even like by a phone app or similar, and then you just pay by the minute or the hour to use that vehicle. You don't worry about taxes or insurance or fuel; it's all covered. You don't even have to worry about maintaining or parking the car. You like literally use it for the time you need it and pay for that time, and that's it. The only downside, of course, is that often you need to park a car where you found it. You've got to return it to the same place, so it's no good. Like, it's good for like back and forth trips, maybe to the shops, but it's no good for like a day trip out of the city. In Barcelona, though, I use a similar service called Yego, they're actually mopeds. They're these like a little green electric mopeds. They kind of look like Vespas, but kind of a bit more, I don't know, certainly more green. They're parked all over the city. You'll see them if you come and look out for them. You open the mobile app and you unlock the nearest bike to you. And in the top box is a helmet, which you can put on, and away you go. And they charge about 20 cents per minute, so you can easily zip across the city from one end to the other for about 10, 12 euros, depending on the traffic. Of course, it's very rare that you actually need to cross the whole of Barcelona, and if you did, you probably just get the metro. But for short trips, if you're in a hurry, maybe there's two of you, because there actually are two helmets in the top box, it can work out much cheaper and faster. Like, say you wanted to get from Sagrada Familia to Plaza de Catalunya. Take about 30 minutes on the metro. You'd have to change metro as well, maybe get a bus. But you could probably do it in less than 10 minutes on an electric moped for very cheap. And again, you don't have to worry about maintenance, insurance, charging it because it's electric. They deal with all of that. I don't know how they do it. I guess they have people that come and pick them up and charge them. I do fancy buying a moped or a little motorbike for getting around. But Jago serves as a convenient and cheap enough alternative for getting about now. Modern technology has come under fire this past week, though, as automation wasn't quite automatic enough. Last Thursday, Associated Press announced that a design flaw in Tesla's autopilot, the semi-autonomous driving system, and this was news to me as well, it's semi-autonomous, and driver, so it was a combination of semi-autonomous driving system and driver inattention, that caused a Model S electric car to slam into a fire truck parked on a California freeway. The National Transportation Safety Board determined that the driver was over-reliant on the system and that the autopilot's design let him disengage from driving. Now, whenever we talk about autopilot, I always imagine this inflatable doll from the 1980 Leslie Nielsen comedy Airplane. Apparently what happened on this particular occasion, and we should take a moment to just, for the beautiful Tesla Model S that was involved, the autopilot and the driver were both daydreaming, apparently, behind the wheel. An SUV pulled out ahead and the car ran into the back of a fire engine, of all things. Like, how do you miss, whether you're a computer or an artificial intelligence system or a human, a freaking fire engine? The report says that Tesla's automatic emergency braking did not activate, and there was no braking from the driver whose hands were not detected on the wheel. This is news to me as well. I didn't know that hands could be detected on the wheel by Tesla in the moments leading up to the crash. Now, apparently autopilot, which says to me that the car will be driving itself, is only semi-autonomous. And Tesla say that, and I quote, "The semi-autonomous system is designed to assist drivers who must pay attention and be ready to intervene at all times." A statement from a driver in a nearby vehicle provided by Tesla said the driver appeared to be looking down at a cell phone or other device before the crash. Now, I have to ask, one, if you have a truly self-driving car, which I thought Teslas were, apparently not. Tesla CEO Elon Musk hopes to launch a fully autonomous car next year. But if you were in a self-driving car, semi or fully, I don't know, why wouldn't you be doing something else, like catching up on your emails or playing Candy Crush on your phone? Like, the car's driving itself. Honestly, though, up until this year, there was a Tesla that failed to brake as a lorry was turning ahead of it, and the car, and unfortunately the driver who died of the incident, ended up underneath the lorry. I thought that Teslas and self-driving cars were going to be a solution to all of our traffic problems. I was more concerned about like us non-automated car drivers in our Fred Flintstone manually driven cars and not the self-driving Teslas. Apparently, autopilot can steer a car in its lane, change lanes with driver permission, and keep a safe distance from vehicles ahead of it, as well as automatically braking to avoid a crash, except when there's a fire engine, apparently. It can't, however, completely drive on its own yet. So that's the big thing. You can see, though, just how easily you could lose your focus when the car's driving itself. I mean, like, a fucking lot of people lose attention when they're fully driving their own vehicle anyway, let alone when the vehicles do most of it for them. Apparently, Tesla cars just don't keep an eye on the road, though. They're watching the driver too, and I didn't know this. As I said, it knows when you're on the steering wheel, you're holding the steering wheel. In a statement, Tesla said that autopilot repeatedly reminds drivers to remain attentive and prohibits the use of the system if they ignore the warnings. So the car's like, you must pay attention to the road. You must pay attention to the road. You must pay attention to the road. And if you don't, it punishes you by making you drive yourself manually, like the old school days. So they monitor when the driver's hands are on the wheel and warn them if they let go too often. The explanation that the National Transport Safety Board give, I think, is really disturbing. In my opinion, they said that a stationary vehicle in the Tesla's field of view is a challenge for the system to assess a threat and brake. It says that the detection of stationary objects is challenging for all manufacturers of driver assist systems. I mean, damn. Like, next time you're driving, see how much stationary stuff there is. Like, self-driving cars need to detect this. Like, street lights, traffic lights, houses, buildings, other parked cars, people waiting to cross the road, just off the top of my head, you know? So I'm kind of, like, I've been a fan of the Tesla cars and think they're really cool, but I'm kind of failing to see what their semi-autonomous autopilot actually does, beyond the kind of gimmick of going like, hey, my car drives itself, but I have to be attentive all times. Like, it can more or less drive you to work, but you need to be basically driving at all times. Like, your hands on the wheel, ready to brake or swerve. Especially on the lookout for stationary objects, obviously. I think I'd rather be in control for now. Like, I'd rather be more comfortable just knowing it's me in control of the vehicle, rather than having to take control from the Tesla. Something else to watch out for. Another thing to watch out for as we move into this age of automation and connectivity is your oven. An automated oven, I hear you say? Yes, the June oven is a smart oven, because everything is smart these days, obviously. You can control it from anywhere thanks to a handy mobile phone app. And in fact, you can even use your Amazon Alexa to talk to your oven. Hey, Alexa, turn on the oven. They look amazing. Like, I'm not going to lie. I had a look on their website. Really cool. Exactly the kind of thing I've been imagining as I've got a slow cooker, right? And I use it a lot and I love it. But I've really been trying to time it as I go out and come back so that things don't overcook. Like, if I leave now and I go to work, I'll come back in 8 hours. And it takes 7.5 hours to cook. It takes half an hour to warm up. So if I plug it in now, I'll just about make it, as long as I don't get delayed. Like I thought about getting these things like you can plug in. It's kind of a timer, but it's a smart timer, so it's connected to your phone. And as the slow cooker, like you could turn it to low or high or off. Those are the three options. I thought you could turn it to low, plug it into the timer so it wouldn't be on, and then when the moment came, you could turn it on or off from your phone, and the food would be in there, cooking or not cooking, depending on if it's on or off. That's my solution. But I've now been showing these June smart ovens. In fact, this oven is so smart that it'll detect what the food is that you've put in, and figure out how best to cook it all by itself. Like, that's more autonomy than the Tesla Model S, surely. The June oven even has camera connection to your phone, so you could watch and even live stream on Facebook your food cooking. Yes, this is real life. For $700, you can get yourself a June smart oven. The only downside is that it may turn on during the night and heat up to 200 degrees Celsius. The oven's owners can't explain what happened, but June insists it's a user error. Now, there have been a few reports. The first one was on Verge, which is where I first came across the June smart oven. It reports one of these owners' ovens turned on around 2:30 a.m. onto like grill mode, 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 200 degrees centigrade, for hours while he slept. And he only noticed when he woke up 4 hours later. He says his wife baked a pie around 11:30 p.m., as you do, and on the night of the preheating incident, and she turned the oven off when she took the pie out. He was sure of it, absolutely certain. 2 other owners have posted on June owners Facebook group about similar remote preheating incidents. The first documented preheating incident has been narrowed down to May this year, where a user reported that he roasted potatoes about 5 p.m. one night, turned them off and left them to cool in the oven, apparently forgetting to take them out. Now, the next morning he woke to find that the oven had turned itself on at 1:20 a.m. and baked at 218 degrees Celsius for 4 hours and 32 minutes, with the potatoes in the oven, which were now burned to a crisp. And a third owner wrote in late July that her phone woke her up at 6:30 a.m. with a push notification because the June smart oven not only allows you to connect with your Alexa and with your phone and give you a live stream via Facebook, but it also gives you push notifications saying that the oven had preheated to 200 degrees Celsius and was ready to cook. Now, their CEO, Matt Von Horn, says the owners, not the oven, are to blame. He says, "We've seen a few cases where customers have accidentally activated their oven to preheat via their device. Whilst it's great having your oven connected to your phone, you also have the risk of accidentally switching it on." Good one, Matt. We've all accidentally called people or mashed a random combination of commands into our phones from our pockets. But imagine pocket dialing your oven to preheat when you're on a night out. Now, apparently June plan on updating the device so it not only recognises the food that is in the oven, but it'll also recognise if there's no food in the oven and hopefully avoid such situations. These are really modern problems that we're facing here. These are proper 2019 issues, aren't we? My self-driving cars crashed on the way home, whereas planning to get dinner out of the self-cooking oven. What will they automate next? Now, another phenomenon of 2019 seems to be the polite burglary. Twice this week, I saw articles about burglars that, despite breaking and entering, were determined not to be rude. The first case was in Florida because where else? The home's occupant told investigators he woke to discover a man cooking and eating sometime after 4 a.m. Tuesday morning. Apparently, the intruder had told the previously sleepy man to go back to bed. I mean, imagine waking up on a 4 a.m. on a Tuesday morning to find someone cooking himself a early breakfast snack and just being like, "It's all right, go back to bed. It's fine." The intruder ended up fleeing as the resident called the police. Perhaps he hadn't made enough for both of them. I don't know. Police caught the hungry intruder and unsurprisingly said that he was under the influence of alcohol. A slightly more high-profile case last Friday as police responded to a call from none other than the home of, well, the beach mansion of Taylor Swift at Rhode Island. Apparently, police found a 26-year-old man inside not wearing any shoes. When asked why he wasn't wearing any shoes, he said he was always taught to take his shoes off when entering someone's home to be polite. Most people, being polite, would probably knock and wait to be welcomed in, but each to their own. And after I said last week that I was determined to go meat-free for at least a couple of days per week in order to do my bit for the environment, I want to draw attention to another issue. I have been doing it, by the way. Today I had pasta with pesto and hummus. What else have I done? I did some bean burgers. Yeah, I've been on it. I've been working on it, I promise. I want to raise a bit of attention to another issue. And this one I'm certainly guilty of as well. Apparently, in the United States alone, there is as much as $218 billion of uneaten food wasted each year along the entire supply chain. So that's to say, like, from field to plate, or bin, as it were. Apparently, globally, the carbon emitted by waste food could be classified as its own country. And if it were, it would be the third worst carbon emitter in the world behind the US and China. Now, people buy food, I do this, stick it in the fridge, planning on cooking it and eating it, but the reality doesn't often live up to the good intentions. I do it, I'll buy something, typically when I'm in like a healthy mood, it's like, right, let's go and buy loads of healthy food, stock up the fridge, I'm going to be healthy this week. And like, I put it in the fridge thinking, I'll eat that tomorrow. But as we learn from James Bond, tomorrow never comes. Before you know it, whatever it was has gone bad. There's nothing for it but the bin, a waste of money, and a waste of what was once good food. Generally a feeling of guilt, I guess. It's not just stuff going bad, though, that, you know, before we've had a chance to eat it, apparently. A professor at Ohio State University recently published a paper suggesting people throw out perfectly good food because of the expiration date on the packet. This isn't the first time I'm hearing this. The problem with that, often those labels, there's not like a standard. They're unclear, they're misleading, and sometimes they're even wrong, which just means perfectly good food goes in the bin. Now, the additional problem of food that's expired, according to the label, is that people feel less guilty about it. It's like, oh, well, the label says it's out of date, I gotta throw it. That's what it is. Whereas if you actually see kind of a tomato rotting in the fridge, you feel kind of sad for it. I don't know. For the study, Professor Rowe asked participants to list and send a picture of what was in their fridge. And then a week later, they followed up to find out what was eaten, what wasn't, and what had gone bad. It turned out that people weren't eating foods because the best before label dates coming and going, believing that the food had gone bad because it had officially expired, if you like, by the date on the packet. Sadly, though, according to Rowe, most of that food was probably still okay. He says that actually, while a lot of foods like they get, the kind of the declining quality maybe a little bit over time. Very few actually expire to the point of becoming dangerous, with the exceptions of maybe like meat and he says soft cheese as well. Apparently, if it smells obviously bad or it's moldy or not good, throw it. But unless it's got these obvious signs, it's very unlikely to have a serious effect other than just tasting it funky maybe and you just go, oh, it's gone bad. He says not many of us know where the line between quality and safety is. It's kind of like, if I don't enjoy it, or will I die? Like, these are the kind of, will it taste all right or will it cause death? And in fact, a lot of foods have a sell-by label as well, which it just means the shops need to be sending customers away with that food rather than just throwing it out completely. Like, that's sell-by. People can take that away. Sell-by date's gone, but that's fine. You're not selling it. Eat it until it goes bad. Rose research found that these vague date-only labels just trigger people to not even finish food, just at a very high rate. He says that better labels and better education for us consumers, so, it's not our fault as such. We're just doing what we're told by the food industry and the people that write these labels. Better education for us, so we know when stuff's getting bad or worse, taste and quality-wise, rather than the stuff that's going to be dangerous for us. He suggests that if a food company can stand by the quality of its product for just another day or two, meaning that best if used by label had a few more days on it, it could decrease intent to toss an item, your desire to throw out an item, by as much as 20 to 30%, which would have just enormous impact on food waste and the environment, and of course your pocket. At the end of the day, all this food you're throwing out, you've bought already. So what should we be doing if we're going to cut down on food waste, save money and the planet in the process? Professor Rose says, I like this, he says, use your nose, take a nibble, and give it a second chance before you toss it automatically. And so that's it. The big exceptions, he says, meat, fresh meat, deli meat, and cream cheese, like soft cheeses. Don't know what the deal with that is, but apparently, if they go bad, they can be dangerous. So there you go. Next time you think something's going off, give it a taste, give it a sniff. It's a bit tangy, throw it out. If it's all right, why not? Ignore that date. I'm coming up to my second of 3 weekends of motorbike racing work in a row. Next week, as we head to Misano with MotoGP for the San Marino GP. In the meantime, you could catch my voice on World Superbikes on ITV4 this week. I'm on Tuesday, and then it's repeated Saturday morning, I think. So if you're in the UK, of course. I did a one-off with them last weekend and quite enjoyed it. I didn't know a lot about World Superbikes, not going to lie. But I was able to figure it out. There was some thrilling motorbike racing as well. It was really good. I enjoyed it a lot. And novelty's always fun, it's something a bit different to do. The highlights from the San Marino GP, they'll be on Quest, which is like a free view sports channel, I believe. I think that's a week on Monday, so it's like after the race weekend. And so there's plenty of chances to hear my voice on this occasion, What else? The Rugby World Cup kicks off in Japan a week on Friday. Ireland go into that ranked number 1 in the world because they beat Wales 19-10 last weekend. And my friend and reliable amateur rugby analyst Matt tells me that we're going to be in for a damp start to the Japan 2019 Rugby Union World Cup because after the opening ceremony, which it's in Japan, let's be honest, it's going to be awesome. Host nation Japan will take on Russia, who haven't been on a good run lately, to say the least. Last weekend, they were beaten by Connacht, which was like an Irish club. And before that, they were beaten 22-35 in Moscow at home by championship side Jersey Reds. Like, it just looked like Russia's campaign is going to be very short-lived. Interesting story that I heard ahead of the Rugby World Cup is that they're a bit worried that a lot of these teams, especially like the Fiji teams and a lot of the players really have got tattoos. And apparently in Japan, tattoos typically suggest kind of like a relation to the Yakuza. So there's been this concern that all these rugby players, which are going to stand out anyway in Japan, let's be honest, because a lot of rugby players are massive, are going to be like, because of their tattoos, people are going to assume that with the Yakuza. There's a cultural issue, but I don't know. I'm sure it'll be fine. Anyway, I've got nothing more to say about Japan, the Yakuza, and rugby players' tattoos. That's all for this week. It's probably best that I wrap it up there. I'm rambling, I think. Let me know what you thought of my rambles. It's always great to hear from people, whether it's feedback, ideas, suggestions, questions. You can reach out via Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you very much for listening to episode 3 of the Last Palabra podcast.